action, action. Lights, camera, action. Let's go. Lights, camera, action, action. Pop up a little, pop up a little.
To do this and do it well, how much of it is innate, blessed from God talent, and how much of it is mastering a skill set?
Every single person can improve, and all human beings at core are communicators. When we're little, we need to communicate our basic needs. And so some people are verbal, some people are visual, some people are tactile. We all learn in different ways and we all communicate in different ways. The people who have the communicator talent, people who like to talk to each other and who are great listeners and observers of life and who are creative, people who are articulate, this is about 8 to 10% of the population. And these people also, in addition to broadcasters, make great writers, they make great politicians, they make great lawyers, they make great priests, ministers, rabbis, they make wonderful psychologists. You can actually take this communicator talent and it morphs into any area of dealing with human beings where you're trying to get ideas and thoughts from your head into their head. And so when we develop talent, we look for people who are natural communicators, and then people who have humor, because that's the secret ingredient to all of this. The fairy dust in powerful radio, every single successful morning show globally, there's not really an exception, has an element of humor. Every single successful radio station has to have either, you don't have to be a funny person, but you sure have to know that often life is absurd, and we're going to tell you how it is today.
Well, that leads to the question I was going to ask you next, which is, how do we know talent when we need to find talent? How do we recognize it? There's a tendency, as you know, well, so-and-so's on the morning show already, let's get them. Or so-and-so's in the night block, let's use them. Or let's put an ad in the trades. I mean, how do you see it even when it's right in front of your face?
Yeah, I think it's really good to develop talent. I like to try before you buy. I'm a big believer in that. Date before you marry, please. I believe in that. So I think that actually right now, the website is the new overnight shift. And I'm quoting Erica Farber because she really came up with that line. If you have people who are doing, whether it's produced pieces or writing for the web, and they're really good, give them more to do. And if they start to shine and they start to stand out, I think I mentioned to you, Q107 in Toronto, the morning show is off this week, and the producer's hosting the show because the producer's so terrific, and using the methods of powerful radio, he's able to handle it on his own because we have a homegrown producer that has grown up with that show. Talent is everywhere, and you really you can teach somebody to be a broadcaster. You cannot teach talent. It's like the blue eyes. They are born with it. But you can teach them this craft of how to be a more powerful communicator.
In your experience, do you see stations utilizing their web, their digital assets to say, hey, go, it's a playground, go play?
The smart ones are doing it, and often where there's creative people. There's stations that are in varying degrees of playing around with the web. And some people understand this is a brand new canvas that we've suddenly been given. New set of paints, a new canvas to play with, and oh boy, let's go. There are people who understand that at core, and then there are people who think of it as, oh, we have another vehicle to sell things, and then there are people who think of it as, oh my God, we actually have to do something on this newfangled thing that everybody else is doing right now. We've got to tweet because everybody else is doing it, and I've just read an article that says we have to be doing it. So the people who are going to be the most successful are the organic people who think that it's a new canvas and isn't this fun? And most of successful radio comes out of, isn't this fun, let's try something.
There seems to me to be a certain lack of respect for talent, and I say that because we know talent's scarce. By definition, it's scarce. That's what makes it talent. But we don't seem to be looking that hard for it. We don't seem to be doing, in many cases, a great job of nurturing it. We seem to be kind of relying on whatever menu of syndicated talent is available to us. And there have been a lot, and to say nothing of the fact that younger generations are not growing up with radio the way older ones did, so they're not walking into radio with expectations that they'll pay their dues and one day get on the air. Why do you think there's not as much respect for talent as it deserves based on everything you've just told me?
I think that managers who understand that you are betting on a racehorse, and if you're going to bet your life on a racehorse to win the race for you, then you better believe that racehorse can win the race. And I think a lot of managers have talent on their staff who are racehorses they do not believe in. And when they do not believe in the talent they have, they don't think that person can win the race for them or that show can win the race for them, then, as is human nature, they tend not to show that person a great deal of respect. However, conversely, if you have a star at a radio station that is bringing in huge audiences and is funny and everybody loves listening to that person, and the management believes with their heart and soul that this racehorse is a champion, then you don't have that problem with lack of respect for talent.
So how do you get from A to B? How do you get from the beginning to the end of that story?
You have to give people a chance. You have to give people a show. You have to give people a place to work. We've hired people from podcasts because if somebody has developed 1 million downloads on their podcast, then you know what, I'm going to talk to you about a radio show. And that's happening organically. People are doing it on their own. I just had a conversation yesterday with a guy who, when he was let go from his radio station, not because of low ratings, but because the radio station decided they could cut and save money. So he had very good
Imagine
ratings.
that. I've never heard of that.
So he got fired because and what he did was he just took a lot of his audience onto the internet, and he took his sponsors as well. And so he's making, close to 7 figures, and he took a lot of his sponsors with him, and they're perfectly happy to go with him. And he's still, cutting the ribbon at the shopping mall and doing all the things he did before, but he's doing it on the internet.
Well, because ultimately it's not really about radio per se. It's not about the microphone. It's not about the format, right? It's not about the show. It's about the person.
Personality, the human being. And if you look at, the Adam Carollas or the Kim Commandos, people don't care if it's radio, terrestrial, or if it's internet, or they want to be with that person. They want to hang out with that human being. And so most listeners want to be informed entertainingly and entertained informatively. They really, a lot of people don't have fascinating lives. They are working at jobs because they need them, and maybe they need the health insurance or whatever, and they're not doing a career path that speaks to their soul. Maybe they have a small circle of people. So when they turn on the radio, that expands their world, and they're offered unique journeys, and they're introduced to characters they can care about or get to know through the interviews. They can have fun, and they can be part of a party or an experience they could never get to on their own. And that's what great artists do for us, whether it's on the radio or a painter or a film. It's all the same thing. We're in the story business. We're in the business of, if you're alone in a room, you don't have to be alone in a room. And if you plug into this art form, your world gets expanded, and somehow you're better because of it.
So in other words, if you want to be the kind of personality that listeners want to spend time with, pick up Beyond Powerful Radio, A Communicator's Guide to the Internet Age, a great book with all the zillion tips in it. Valerie Geller, talent coach, consultant, and bon vivant. Thank you so much.
Great. Mark, thank you very much for talking to me today.